Let's start indeed, because we have 1 hour with two very interesting speakers today. So we have Montse Daban and Rinke Zonneveld, I'm very happy to have this talk that we have actually as a wrap-up of inspirational talks in the past 2 years, or as a cornerstone of the or capture stone of the 2 years that we have been in this program for innovation ecosystem development. And I'm very happy that we have these two speakers as the final ones, because we have talked about all the elements that comprise an innovation ecosystem, from universities and living labs and incubators, and how to create connections in all the different elements of an innovation ecosystem, and actually how to get it off the ground. And now we have two speakers that are organizing a startup or an innovation support organization that really is in the next level of maturity. So many elements already exist in the regions of Catalonia and of South Holland, where, as you know, I'm located. And we can talk about, okay, once you have established all these elements and these collaborations, how can you profit of that as a region? And we have two speakers that know how to profit of that and how to make it sort of a self-propelling machinery. But it doesn't mean that it is easy. There's still a lot of work to do then, and it's still complex, but you can build upon what you have started maybe 15 years ago. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And let me first start by introducing the two speakers. So I will start with Montse, and after that we do Rinke, and I will do a quick Q&A so that everybody can get to know the two speakers. From that we will continue. Maybe a very practical note, this meeting is being recorded, so be aware with what you're saying, but you know that. And also, as soon as we start the discussion, so after the introduction, please feel free to interrupt with a question or put it in the chat, and Nora will keep an eye on the chat. But this is really about learning together and about understanding how they manage to set up their organization and what can help you to do it in your region. So I think these are all the practicalities out of the way now. So let's start with the two speakers. And I will start with Montse. So Montse, good to see you again. We talked last week, and I've been in your region a few times, having connections with Biocad as well. So it's a great organization. And I would like to ask a few questions to you. First of all, so you've been working for Biocad for 15 years, right? You've been there from the start. In between, you have worked at the government as well, actually also in building the innovation ecosystem, right? So can you say a bit about what you did in that position with the government?
Well, yeah. So yeah, thank you, Roel, and I'm very happy to be here because it's about sharing the experiences, knowledges, and what we've done in our organizations. So in 2011, actually, I entered the government of Catalonia, the department of what at that time was the Ministry of Business and Knowledge. Ministries have changed of names and units go from one to the other. So now it's the Ministry of Research and Universities. So the role here actually, I'm still there. The role is advisor on science policies related to the regional innovation smart specialization strategies. to the regional innovation strategies also and policies, and the internationalization of the system and institutions, mostly universities and research organizations. So that's a little bit. So that's well connected to what I'm doing at BioCat.
Exactly, that was actually why I was asking, because you see that building an ecosystem happens from many different types of stakeholders actually working on the same agenda. So you often see that you do one part of the job at one organization and then you move to another, actually keep doing the same type of work. So that's very interesting. But now about BioCat, can you say something about what is the purpose or the mission of BioCat as an organization?
Yeah. Well, actually, BioCat, since it's been created in 2006 up to the moment, up to now, has changed a little bit the statement of the mission. But at the end of the day, it's always the same. We have a strong science base on the life sciences and healthcare, health tech, medtech. It has been kind of shifting according to what happens around also. So we try to evolve at the same time that the ecosystem is evolving. At the very beginning, the mission was bringing this idea of self-belonging to something, to a network of life sciences ecosystem that was not yet an ecosystem. But the mission is to maximize the innovation that is, or the research and the innovation that is generated in this ecosystem for the having a maximum social and economic impact of these activities. So that's it. And it's by mandate, kind of a mandate of the government. So that means that we do that for the whole region. It's not that we have like members of the cluster that it is a membership fee-based organization, but it's kind of working by default for all the members of the ecosystem.
And how do you define your region? What is your region? Is it just Barcelona, or is it
no?
bigger?
No, the region is Catalonia. It's all the. It's actually a NUTS 2. The region is 7.5 million inhabitants. So it's the four main, we could say NUTS 3 regions, four provinces. And Barcelona is one of those, and the most populated. But at the same time, we have the others, and we work for the whole region.
So you have 7.5 million people in your region. That's quite a lot. How many people work for BioCat?
We are about 20 people, 20 something. But I mean, we are not the only organization that kind of works in this ecosystem. It is a mature ecosystem with a lot of supporting organizations, but we are the organization that has kind of mandate of the government for that. So we work in connection to the others, and that builds up actually. But yeah, we have like 1,200 companies and startups and SMEs and some larger organizations, and about 100 research organizations, hospitals, universities working in this sector. But it's for the whole, let's say, country, region.
And you're completely funded by the government, or
no,
you also get money from other parts?
Well, yeah, we are funded. I mean, this was launched by the government and the municipality of Barcelona, the Barcelona City Council, and other stakeholders. The president of our board of trustees is the president of the government of Catalonia, the Generalitat. So it's well connected to the government. We have we have 3 more departments connected to the board of trustees or in the board of trustees, but they provide for about 50% of the funding. So the other funding comes from competitive activities, EU funded projects, sponsorships that we get to organize specific events, but we don't get money from the companies that we help to or accelerate or accompany or. So it's kind of it's competitive funding mostly what we get, other than the board of trustees funding.
Okay. And you said board of trustees. Is that are there also other stakeholders in that? So your advisory
Yeah,
committee or something?
yeah. The board of trustees actually is it's large. Is we have the the Department of Health, the Department of Enterprise, but we also have hospitals. We have the Organization of Hospitals and Research Organizations, research infrastructures. We have also companies and associations of companies, like, for example, the Association of Biotech Companies, which has about 160 members. They are also in the board of trustees. So this board of trustees, or this governing body, tries to be very extensive in the terms of the organizations and the outreach of all the main stakeholders that can be involved in the growth of this sector. So companies as well.
Okay, thank you. So later on, we will talk about why all these people and organizations are willing to take part in this, but that's part of the discussion. So my final question, and do you have regions that you consider to be your competitors, maybe in Spain or close by?
Yeah, well, in Spain, let's say that years ago, there was an initiative called the Federation of Spanish Bioregions, and the most active regions at the time, and I'm talking about 2010 or something like that, were Valencia, Madrid, and the Basque country, and Andalusia a little bit. So at this moment, when we talk about bioregions, we are the most active bioregion in Spain. We have 50% of the companies of this sector are in Catalonia. The top indicators are here. For example, when we've been working on a landscape and of the biomanufacturing sector, that I will refer later, because this is part of something that we do internationally. We have been the main contributors to this gap analysis because we have all the pieces in place and the connections. So the largest activity takes place in Catalonia, but as a competitor, we can have Madrid and Basque Country in this moment.
Okay.
But not of first position. And then at the international level, we find more partners than competitors. We try to partner with regions in Germany, in France, in UK also, in the Nordic countries. And this is how we internationalize. But we will talk about that later too.
Yes.
I understand, yeah.
Yes, thank you. That's actually also why we know each other from the Medical Data Organization and BioCat. So that's what I'm familiar with at least. So let's move to Rinke. So Rinke and I, we know each other for, I think, about 8-9 years or so now. We have been collaborating when I was doing Medical Data and you were starting Innovation Quarter. So great to see each other again in this talk now. So before Rinke started with the with Innovation Quarter, the regional development agency for South Holland, he was working at the ministry. And so what were you doing exactly there, Rinke? What was your position at the Ministry of Economic Affairs?
Well, I started my career at the Ministry of Economic Affairs in the Netherlands, so I've had numerous positions, but my latest 3 responsibilities were I was responsible for industry policy in the Netherlands. Then the 2008-2009 economic crisis hit us all hard, and I became responsible for the crisis response team within the ministry. And then later on, in my last few years at the ministry, I was responsible for everything that was related to entrepreneurship and SME policy. So I was, one of the highest civil servants in the Netherlands when it comes to economic policy in the Netherlands.
Okay, thank you. And then you actually went and set up the Innovation Quarter organization in South of Holland, or South Holland. What is the purpose or the mission of Innovation Quarter? How would you define that?
Well, as you mentioned, Roel, Innovation Quarter is the economic development agency for the Greater Rotterdam The Hague area. I always use the Greater Rotterdam The Hague area because outside of the Netherlands, nobody has any clue what South Holland means. So it's the Greater Rotterdam The Hague area. Well, our main focus is to unleash the innovation potential in our region and to strengthen our economic structure. And we do so by several tasks. We invest directly in companies. We have 4 different investment funds for over 340 million euros currently. Last couple of years, we have invested in over 100 startups and scale-ups. We're responsible for attracting foreign companies to our region and more helping our innovative SMEs being successful abroad. And last but not least, because I think that is maybe the center of our activities, is strengthening the ecosystems in our region by setting up innovation projects, innovation programs, helping with campus development, etc., etc.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the nicest thing about the Innovation Quarter organization. So that you're so close to the companies and the universities, and you also do investment in the company. So that's you have a, as also with BioCut, you have a close understanding of what's happening in the ecosystem and with the company. So
what I will say is, or at least what we pretend is that we know the truth behind the front door of companies, but also a lot of the knowledge institutes, etc. So maybe it sounds strange from my perspective, but for me, a region is not so important because, companies, you have to watch out that they don't get locked in within their own regional ecosystems because the world is much larger than that. But I believe in the region as our main focus because it's all about proximity, density, about knowing the truth, knowing who are the key players. And I think that's the main added value of what we do.
So how large is Innovation Quarter? How many people work for you?
Well, as you remember, Roel, I started myself, and I 8 years ago, and we've grown to slightly over 120 people currently.
Okay, so that's quite a large organization. And for how many people live in the region, the Greater Rotterdam The Hague area?
3.7 million. So I don't know if 120 people is much. We focus on 9 different sectors. That's the main difference with what Monsi talked about BioCat. 9 different sectors, 3 main tasks. So that means that, for example, we have 2 business developers in the field of life sciences. And that's not much, knowing what is happening here in this region. We have a small team on the energy transition. In all honesty, I could work with 120 people on the energy transition in the port of Rotterdam alone. So I don't think 120 is much. I'm very grateful to my shareholders that we've grown so fast, but I don't think it's much.
So maybe in comparison to what most people here have in their organization to work on regional development, it's much, but but there's also a lot to do. So it's understandable. So you talk about your shareholders. Who are they?
Innovation Quarter is a private organization. So we have with public shareholders, and our shareholders are the Ministry of Economic Affairs, the province, all the large cities in the region, but also the universities and academic medical centers. So all in all, we have 13 shareholders, and we have 15, and most of them are one-on-one our shareholders, but 15 organizations from which we get direct funding.
Okay, and do you, as Monse was saying, she has about 50% is coming in via competitive funding opportunities, European projects. Do you that as well, or do you get most of your funding from direct from your shareholders?
Well, our current turnover for the upcoming years approximately 15 million, 1.15, of which is 6 million direct funding from our shareholders. Approximately 6 million is for projects and programs we run, sometimes funded by our shareholders, sometimes funded with European money. and let's say 3 million is the costs we make for running our investment funds.
Okay, and so can you say a few words about the investment funds? So how do you get the budget to invest in? You invest in startups and in existing companies, right? So it's where do you
currently,
get?
well, maybe it's good to mention to the other people in this meeting. I'm also the president of the economic development agencies in the Netherlands. And the economic development agencies in the Netherlands, they're involved with approximately 50% of all venture capital deals being done in the Netherlands. So that means we are by far the most active investors in the Netherlands. But we do almost all our deals we do with private investors jointly. We currently have 4 investment funds. I think one of which I'm very fond is unique. It's an investment proof concept fund we set up along with universities and academic medical centers, through which we invest in a really, really, really early stage of the companies, and also in a very founder-friendly way. And then we have 3 funds for more mature startups and scale-ups. Most of the money we have in our funds come from our shareholders, but it's also a part coming from European funds.
So these, so there are in the other regions of the Netherlands, there are also these development agencies, also publicly owned mainly, and they have publicly originated budget, and you invest together with private investors in the startups or in existing companies.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So on a yearly basis, we invest in approximately 25. We ourselves in 25 to 30 companies.
In the greater Rotterdam, The Hague area. Yeah. Okay. What companies do you, what regions do you consider to be your competitors, or do you consider any regions to be your competitors?
Well, I think what was quite funny in Mons' answer is that he said the regions in Spain are our competitors and the regions abroad are our partners. Mm-hmm. If you look at the Netherlands is a really small country. When I started Innovation Quarter 8 years back, I saw the other regions in the Netherlands as our competitors. And then it joined for it shifted from competitors to, we call it colleagues, so competitors, colleagues, to colleagues, and now I see them as part of the same family. We work extremely intensive together with all the other economic development agencies in the Netherlands. I talk to the other directors 1 hour every 2 weeks and a whole day every 6 weeks. So what we have in common is much more than we have 95% common, and for the last 5%, we might be competitors. But when are we competitors? For example, when a foreign company has to choose in which region to set up its factory. But at the end of the day, it's the company who makes the decision. And in my perspective, it's better that it chooses Brabant, another region in the Netherlands, than that it chooses France. So we're working more and more together. Since a couple of months, we have economic development agencies through the whole of the Netherlands. It used to be that one very large chunk of the Netherlands around Amsterdam didn't have an economic development agency, but now there's one set up as well. And it means that for us, we see each other as one big family.
Great. And I think the topic has come across this training and these inspirational talks more often, that the build of trust is also very important for that you have a mutual understanding and know each other and trust each other. So that's an important part of that collaboration, I assume. So I would like to go to the next stage, which is understanding why are people investing in your organizations? So you get some basic funding, both of you, to set up the basics for your operation, and then you can build on that with other competitive projects. But you have some shareholders that see the benefit in your existence, and they are willing to pay for that. At the beginning, it was maybe a leap of faith, but now they keep doing that. So I would like, so maybe Monse, can you start with that? So what do you think your shareholders, what is success for them that you can provide?
Okay, yeah, I will answer to that. And I would like also to answer at a certain point to some of comments, because I think it's interesting to see these differences and the reasons for that. So, but yeah. I will go to that later. So I will answer first your question. Like I said, in our trustees, they are diverse. Of course, there is the government. Like I said, the government decided at a certain point that it was necessary to have an organization. In the form of this organization, the structure is a private foundation, but it's funded partly by public funds, of course. And they decided that it was worth, because they needed expert people to gather the main stakeholders under a brand, under an umbrella, under a shared goal and perspective, and help that project to the world and to the own ecosystem, and also to other regions in Spain. And that was at the beginning. So that they decided that it was worth having that, and inviting other organizations, like the main private organization, the main company organization for the pharma industry, which is called Pharma Industria. Also the Catalonia Bio and Health Tech organization, that is, like I said, the Association of Biotech Companies. The other representatives from universities, hospitals, research organizations. So funding our organization, you can only refer to the public, to the government. So we do not receive precisely funds from these organizations, Pharma Industria or Catalonia Bio. We do not receive funds from them, but they participate in our decision making. So we present our strategy, and the Board of Trustees approves the strategy twice a year in the Board of Trustees meeting. Why do they still believe in this organization? Because from the very beginning, we set a priority, a strategy that involved, for one, technology transfer, talent, and business exploration, and we've been doing that for 15 years. Ecosystems representation with strategic influence, and that means that we understand the needs of the ecosystem. And I will explain how we understand those needs and how we get this information from there. And we identify those challenges and try to provide or to advise the government with solutions, instruments, and we've been doing that for 15 years too. And we've worked to position internationally the bioregion and the stakeholders, accompanying them to missions, events, fairs, attracting events, fairs, etc., connecting our companies to international investors. This is the kind of things we do in BioCat. We started 4 people in 2006, and we are 20 only for life sciences. I refer to that in terms of number because I think it's a fair number for working in life sciences or one system. But if you go to, for example, the trade and investment agency, the competitiveness agency, that can be somehow compared to what we were discussing also in the innovation quarter. No? This focus on many different sectors, and it can be about 200 or 150 people. So I think that is pretty much comparable in terms of numbers. But now I go back to BioCat. We have developed in 15 years our business intelligence unit, and that means that we have information of everything, or do we try to have information of everything that happens in the sector to run our programs on acceleration of talent, business, funds attraction, investment, and also gap analysis, and trying to assess and to make happen the necessary instruments to help the ecosystem scale up. So that's why they believe that we still are attaining the objectives and working on these three pillars, which is acceleration, which is strategy, and which is projection or positioning. We are having the KPIs expected by the stakeholders, and we continue being funded not only by the government, but also receiving the sponsorship of some companies to develop specific programs. We've been a part of EIT Health, also members of EIT Health, and we developed some programs with EIT Health. So this is the reason why, I mean, because we give what we have in our strategy, which is accelerating and positioning BioCat and the bioregion of Catalonia as one of the top ecosystems in Europe, also being connected to other European regions to help us get this strategic position also in Europe. So
Okay.
I think it's more or less that.
Yeah, thank you. So I also hear what you're saying about the advice that you can provide that is unique for strengthening the economic structure of your region, right? So I think that's also what Rinke was saying as one of the most important elements of an organization like yours to really strengthen that.
If I may add that something that has been particularly visible during the pandemic, we've been connecting the researchers and the companies in a network of COVID chasers, we called, that also helped develop some of the, for example, you know that there's a vaccine being developed now by a Catalan company, IPRA, and this is not attribution, but it's contribution, what we've been doing from our organization in providing the conditions and the connections for that somehow to happen. And I would like also to say that during the pandemic, we've seen the role of cluster organizations like BioCat or other organizations in Europe to identify the disruptions and to provide a quick reaction connecting to overcome the disruptions that were appearing. And that happened all around Europe, but we had a role there too, also providing with a report to the government, specific report on the situation and what to do to overcome what was coming at that moment. And on a certain point that was attended and some things were implemented. So that also has an impact on what the government finally does.
Okay, thanks. So I'm asking for all these things because it's also for the people in our training, and actually for myself as well. It's good to have a list of such arguments of why should people invest in you? Why should you, if you talk to people that have a certain budget to maybe improve the economic situation of a region, that it would be good to invest in such an innovation ecosystem development organization. So, Rinke, can you say a bit from your side? So, why do people keep funding you? Why are they happy?
As you mentioned, Roel, it was a big leap of faith back in 2013, because our region has a very poor track record when it comes to public-public cooperation, public-private cooperation, but also cross-sectoral private cooperation. But there was clear economic urgency. This region, the Greater Rotterdam, The Hague area, had been under delivering for over 20 years. If you look at its potential with 3 top universities, the largest port in Europe, etc., but the economic results were rather poor.
Yep.
And there were a lot of reports written, and some were very explicit, set up in economic development agencies. Some said strengthen this, strengthen that, and so it was a big leap of faith to set up an organization like Innovation Quarter. And then it's a question of hit the ground running. We immediately started with giving back results, and in the first couple of years, we measured results primarily through direct economic impact. So, you know, the hard numbers, number of investments, number of attracted foreign companies, the number of additional funding, the number of new jobs created, etc., etc. And what you've seen during the last 3 years, I think, is a shift from direct economic impact to more strategic economic impact. Is what we're doing really making a difference in strengthening our ecosystems in the region? And more also, and I think that that's quite understandable, a close eye on societal impact. Is there a positive contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals through everything we do? So you see a shift from focus on employment, number of projects, to more strategic vision on what do we do, what do we do not. And to give you a clear example, if we attract a IT startup from India with 3 people who just come here to see whether they can make business, it counts for 1 foreign company. About a half a year ago, Bristol Myers Squibb, one of the largest pharma companies worldwide, announced to set up a CAR-T stem cell facility in Leiden. And they're going to invest over 300 million euros there, and to create somewhere between 500 and 800 jobs. It also counts for 1 company. So it's clear, I guess, that the second one has also in the number of employment, etc., a bigger impact, but also in strengthening our ecosystem. So we're becoming more and more critical towards ourselves. What do we do? What do we do not? We're not satisfied anymore with any result we can count as a KPI, but we're focusing more and more on the biggest bang for the buck.
So, and you see this as a gradient, right? So, or you're moving beyond the first maybe primary economic KPIs that you can.
Yeah.
So, would you recommend people to start with that to get off the ground? So to focus really on the primary KPIs, or would you say, well, from the start, keep an eye on your strategy, or do you need to build up your as you were saying, your public trust?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it partly depends on the situation in your region. But what I like about the way we did it is hit the ground running. So don't start with making plans, but attract the right people and do the job, and be very communicative about what you do. So show the rest and show your shareholders that setting up this kind of organization is really helpful. And what you saw in our region with this poor track record on cooperation is that the whole mindset has shifted towards, wow, working together is fun and it's good. And so if you look in the longer run for the last 10 years, I think what we've been doing, we've been also catalyzing cooperation in our region, even public-public cooperation. So, for example, the cooperation between the province and the larger cities, Rotterdam, The Hague, was rather poor. Now they have us as their vehicle for economic cooperation, and they're working perfectly together. So we've also been catalyzing this kind of cooperation.
Yeah. So what I wanted, now you're mentioning this, what I really found striking when Innovation Quarter just started, and you were having this investment fund, then suddenly at every event where I went, there were you yourself at the beginning, or the investment managers later on, sharing together with the local alderman or a company some success on the stage. It didn't matter what type of event it was. There were you again with a new success, and also with some of the local actors your shareholders sharing in that. And there was a photo moment and a little bit of press or social media. Now, this is just something I would like to share with everyone. So don't be shy about that, and be there with your people, with the local shareholders and the people that are. Doesn't need to be a big success, but
it's not about us. It's on the one hand about the company, and on the other hand, give the vice minister for the region, or the alderman, or the mayor, give them a stage to show also to their people that investing in your company, in your organization, is beneficial for the region.
Yeah, and you're right. It's not about you at that moment on the stage. So the alderman and the company, they're doing it. But at the same time, so this is at the higher level for all of you wanting to set up such organizations. At the same time, it is about you, because you bring the success forward. You invite the vice mayor or the mayor to be on the stage. So it's the combination that also supports you with your organization. So to build credibility for that. So it's I thought that was a smart move. So maybe to go on with the next topic, Montse, you mentioned branding already. So about how important is that? So both. So Denke was saying, as I always said, so we're from the region from South Holland. Now that was the past we are using now, the bigger Rotterdam, The Hague area, because that's internationally more understandable. And Montse, you mentioned branding as well. So how important is that for an organization like yours to work on the branding, or is it just everybody knows Catalonia already? So.
Okay, I mean, everybody knows Catalonia for two things. One, the politics, and the other, the sun. So you have to make sure that they know us for other things too, which is an excellent science. We keep telling our own people also that we are the 9th city in Europe in terms of publications according to Nature, but we are the only one not being one of the most populated or the most populated, or the capital. So the capital effect is important, and we are there. So we keep telling that in and out our organization. The branding is very important. We try to work with two different brands, but at the same time, they are the same thing, which is Biocat and the bioregion of Catalonia, because we are Biocat, the foundation of the bioregion of Catalonia. And we have to project both things. We have to show what is our value proposition. Our value proposition is we deliver deep knowledge of the ecosystem players, the bioregion, and we are Biocat delivering that. We are a seasoned team on these aspects. We have a portfolio of projects of the bioregion in life sciences that we brand them as the bioregion of Catalonia startups or projects from research organizations, and we showcase them to international investors, corporate, etc. We create this sound network of excellence of Biocat. So we are moving from one to the other, and there is not a problem, but it has to be very clear that there is a brand there. There is a strategy accompanying this brand. It's not just a name. And in the beginning, what we did in the first years of Biocat, we ran this forum, Biocat forum, once a year, in which we gather all the stakeholders, and we also invited our mayors or our public officials, those that are supporting our organization, to meet the entrepreneurs, to meet the startups, and to know more about that. We keep doing that with this second step, which is every year we publish the bioregion report. And I go back to the idea of our business intelligence, knowing everything about the bioregion. You all the people that is today in this meeting can enter Catalan Life Sciences platform, or can enter Biocat directory, which is the same. And you can see, you can look for any company, any project in Catalonia according to some keywords that you might use, and you can read them. So we are connectors. We provide this umbrella for all those, but at the same time, our brand is a brand of somewhere where people meet, get the knowledge of the ecosystem, and also can look for advice or can look for projects or programs to accelerate. So this is the branding that we've been working in, and it's been quite, I mean, it's known for that. This and like I said, the report that we present each year on the bioregion, which is a cartography of what happens, but not only a cartography, it is also an identification of the challenges. And we try, our branding also means strategic voice from the ecosystem. For example, now we have identified that the next things to talk about, and Rinke mentioned that, is impact, is socioeconomic, is societal impact. And now we are moving on the sustainability of the health system, which is a big issue, big, huge issue. The environmental sustainability of our industry, life sciences industry, and also the research. So this is the kind of things that provides us the strength in the brand, identifying, providing solutions, gathering together, and connecting to our stakeholders for them to know better what happens in the ecosystem. And this you can see through the website, which is a strong, really has a huge reaching out capability in terms of press and social networks, social media. This is really important, building the brand and showcasing it and reaching out to everybody that can be interested.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to say that we have 11 minutes left, so I think we can talk about a full day about this topic, but if people have pressing questions, just put them in the chat or raise your voice. But maybe, Rinke, about branding, what is more important, do you think? Branding for internal cohesion in the innovation ecosystem, or to the outside world to attract new people or companies or talent to the region? What is there? Can you say something about that?
That's a very good question. For us, I think it started with making sure that everyone in our region, and not only our shareholders, but also all the partner organizations, cluster organizations, incubators, etc., had the same shared vision about what our region stands for, what its strength is. And I think what was quite funny when we started, our shareholders said, focus yourself on 4 sectors. And the high-tech sector was not one of them. Nobody had a clue that we were as strong as high-tech as we proved to be. We are the number 1 high-tech region in the Netherlands, but everyone thought, okay, that's the Brainport region around Eindhoven, where Philips and ASML, etc. are. And well, we talked to all these companies, we came up with the fact and figures, and said, you know, this should be one of our main topics and one of our main focal points. So in the first couple of years, it was about coming up with the right facts and figures, a shared vision, so more your internal branding. And later on, it shifted to more the external branding. For me, external branding, it is important. But what I see quite often is that it doesn't reflect the DNA of a region. So then it's something you wish to be and not something you are. When Richard Floria wrote his famous book, The Rise of the Creative Class, every city in Europe wanted to be a city in a creative sector. So you got really funny examples like Breda, which is a city in the Netherlands, Breda, the city of gaming. It didn't reflect its DNA at all. So it starts with your branding should reflect your DNA and your USPs, and not inside out, but outside in. So how does the outside world look at what you are, and not how do you try to communicate what you wish to be?
Great, thank you. And that's a very good example, I think. Talking about the international position of regions. So how do you do that as from your organization point of view? Because there are, of course, from both of your regions, there are thousands, maybe 10,000s of people having international collaborations. But what is your role as an ecosystem developer in the internationalization? How do you work on that? Maybe Rinke, let's start with you. What's your international role?
Well, I think we're still looking here for the best way to do it, but our international role is, I think if you look at our main task, there is always an international component. So the most clear is we're responsible for attracting foreign companies to a region. And then it's helpful if you have the right connections with like-minded regions worldwide. So for example, in the field of cybersecurity, we have very close cooperation with Invest Ottawa, with Maryland, where around Washington, DC, but also with regions in India and Israel. And it works both ways. So sometimes it's a formal hub-to-hub cooperation, and sometimes it's more informal.
Sorry, what do you do in a hub-to-hub collaboration?
What we do in a hub-to-hub? Oh yeah, that's a good question. In a hub-to-hub cooperation, companies from our region can set up shop abroad for a couple of weeks or a couple of months and being helped with all introductions in that region. So for example, if a cybersecurity company we work with wants to go to North America, then either the people at Invest in Ottawa or in Maryland, they help them with all the right introductions, make sure they have an office for a couple of weeks, etc., and the other way around. So we've been quite successful in attracting Canadian and American companies through this hub-to-hub cooperation. But also, if you look at our investment funds, I think currently about 20% of the co-investors we work with are international VCs. So that's also our international network. If you look at what we do from our business development department, we're working more and more together with like-minded regions in Europe. Around life sciences, we're in a pan-European program. If you look at smart industry, Industry 4.0, we're working with several regions in Europe. So it's more and more expanding, but what we always do is looking at the right sector market combination. So we don't work together with a region on all sectors. It's always on a specific sector with a specific region.
Okay, so then, for instance, the Leiden region could collaborate with the BioCat region or our region. So Monse, how are you looking at international collaboration? It's actually your portfolio, right, within BioCat. So how do you regard that? Oh, you're muted.
I wasn't mute. I was muting myself. Yeah. So what we do is, of course, we at the same time, or as Rinke said, also try to attract companies. We try to attract funding, investment for our SMEs, for our startups. For example, in terms of, it was mentioned in terms of investment. Now we see that 62% of all investment rounds include foreign firms, and this is because also our own VC portfolio or ecosystem, let's say, VCs, has also been growing in the last years. So we try to contribute to that. We collaborate with, there's this Catalonia Trading Investment Agency connected also to the government, with which we collaborate in our everyday basis, that has about 40 different offices around the world. And we try to connect to those offices to reach the local stakeholders and the local networks also. And we collaborate with them in the FDI, so when a large company connects to the Catalan government to look a place to establish their next R&D center or to set a headquarters, we of course collaborate, connecting to our ecosystem. I think I mentioned that is very important. This capacity of connect to the ecosystem, to the main stakeholders, and also provide connections for talent, etc. And at the same time, Yeah, sorry.
No, sorry, Mats. I was thinking this is a very important topic here, and we have 3 minutes left. So I would like to, because I know it's very important for the people here that are always looking into that. How do you attract investors? So please, in a minute or so, what are the minimal conditions for investors to be interested in your region to come there? And I'm going to ask it to Rinke as well. So what is, in your experience, is most important to make sure that is taken care of then?
Should I mean, Rinke wants to start?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. I think Rinke has some ready to go answer for that, I'm sure, but
yeah. So no, we have a program for that. We try to identify in the partnering meetings, and also we try to target through these offices, like I said, the corporations, the corporates and the VCs, and then we provide them with a portfolio of the top projects. And we try to connect them through matchmaking events that we organize. So we contribute to that growth, connecting our companies to the international VCs on actual events that we organize.
So you are able to provide them with an interesting portfolio, that you have the capacity to do that.
We have this business intelligence, we have the platform, we have the knowledge, and we have a portfolio of about 800 top projects that we kind of provide according to the VC's interest, and then they meet the companies, and then they after that, of course, it's their deal. Okay,
thank you. And Rinke?
Well, on the one hand, it's the same as Mans reflected. So I think if you have a mature ecosystem and you can show the portfolio of interesting companies there, then you can build a long-lasting relationship with international VCs. But sometimes it's also one-on-one for a very interesting single company. This morning we announced a 9 million euro round in an online circular supermarket, and we were able to attract a British VC that is spot on in this market. I think this will be the one and only deal that we'll be doing in the Netherlands for the upcoming 5 years. And with other international VCs, we have a more long-lasting relationship. We know when to approach them, when it might be of interest for them. I think, for example, with the High-Tech Gründe Fund from Germany, we have looked at least 10 different propositions. So it depends.
So what I'm hearing is you have to understand the deal flow in your own region, and that has to be sufficient, and of course of sufficient quality. And then you have to understand the investors as well. You have to understand what type of investors is interested when. And then you have to bring it together as well, and in an attractive way for both the startups and the investors to make that happen. So it's that's not an easy thing to do, I can imagine. It's something you have to invest in also to build up that experience and the know-how. Maybe attract people that have already that knowledge about investors or.
So sorry, you need the in-house expertise, and you need the right connections in the ecosystem. When you do not have this expertise, you need to have the map of who's going to provide that for you too.
Yeah, and with that, I would like to maybe conclude that. So that's a good starting point, I think, to also for the people that are not yet in too much of a mature ecosystem, but to build up the business intelligence of your own region. That's something that you can start with. That's easier to start with than to build up the network of investors if you don't have the investment portfolio to offer yet. But you can start building up your local knowledge, the players, the companies you didn't know you had, like Rinke was saying about the high-tech sector. So to understand your own region, so that you know your selling point.
And make sure, if I can add something to that, make sure that you have that you're at an arm's length of your shareholders, because we all have to deal with politicians, but politicians, they look with at the maximum a 4-year time horizon.
Yeah.
We look from a more fact-based and longer time horizon towards what is happening in the region. And so if everything works out right, you tell the politician what they should do instead of the other way around.
Yeah, so be the expert. That's what you say then, right? So
yeah, and if I may add, I just want to add that this business intelligence that you have, the deep knowledge that you have on what happens in your region, is crucial for everything that you want to endeavor with your stakeholders, and that our team, our business intelligence team, will be happy also to answer your specific questions on how to build that, because I think this is one of the most powerful tools that you can build in your organization.
well, that's a great offering. Thank you, Monse. I shared the database as well on the in the chat already, so that people can look it up. And so I would really like to wrap up, because we had booked this hour. I think this was very interesting. Thank you for your contributions, Monse and Rinke. As I was saying, and what we've seen before, I think we could spend a day about this. So I'm looking also to the InnoStars organization. As soon as we can do stuff online, offline again in real life, we should organize some activities like this again. But for now, I would like to wrap up. Thank you very much. We will share the recordings later on, also for all the people here to share it within their region to get people on board with setting up organizations like this. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.